Hi, my name is Brian Arnold, and I live in Kimberling City, Missouri. And Miss Regina has asked me to share a little bit of my story with you today, and so I'm glad to get to do that. I am 53 years old. I'm married. I have four children. I have a bunch of grandchildren. And you're probably sitting there thinking, okay, I don't know who you are, and you're old, and what could you possibly have to say that I would be interested in? I want to tell you a little story about myself. First, I want to remind you or let you know, in case you hadn't thought of it, that everybody that's my age and older at one time or another has been your age. And that means we've all been there. Now, we may not have the same shared experiences, but we all remember what it was like to be your age. And there are times in your life when you're going to need to take advice from somebody who's been in your shoes. And even though our experiences may not be identical, you can gain some wisdom. And that's what I'm hoping for a few minutes today to do is give you just a little bit of wisdom of what I've learned in my 53 years. I want to start by telling you a story about being 5 years old, being in kindergarten. And when you're 5 years old, you can dream about anything. And as a 5 year old, I was interested in Superman. And I remember being on the slide one day out in the playground at school. And I climbed up on this tall slide and I looked down, and at the bottom of the slide was some sand. And I was thinking to myself, I bet I could fly off of this slide. And even if I hit the ground, it's going to be okay. And so I took a few steps down the slide. You were supposed to just slide down it, but I kind of walked down a couple of steps and then thought, okay, I'm gonna dive off. I'm gonna be Superman. I learned a couple of valuable lessons that day. One, I learned that gravity is real because when I took off and started to fly, I hit the ground right here on my chin and busted open my chin. Uh, the other lesson that I learned was that sand didn't look or was not as soft as it looked. And I found myself suddenly having to go to the hospital to get this sewn up, get my chin sewn up. The reason that I remember the story so well is because that day was the day that I lost my grandfather. He died that same day. I didn't even realize that he had been sick, but that's a memory that sticks in my mind. And I remembered that changed my life pretty dramatically. I was not going to be Superman, and my grandfather was no longer with me. Well, the very next year at age 6, we were on vacation, and my dad was mowing the yard for my grandmother, and my mother hollered out the door and said, "Brian, go get your dad. It's time to eat." So I went flying out the door, running alongside my father, who's on this riding lawnmower, and we're communicating. And as we're doing that, there was a bush out in front of us, and we both saw it, and we both moved, to the left to miss this bush, and I slipped. The grass was still wet from morning dew, and I slipped, and my father didn't have time to react, and I didn't have time to get out of the way, so my father accidentally rode this riding lawnmower right over the top of me. And at age 6, I lost my left leg. It was cut off basically right below the knee. Now, my dad was a basketball coach when I was 6, and now I found myself being fitted with a wooden leg. I felt sorry for myself and didn't fit in. And Superman seemed a long ways away, I can tell you that. Um, and this changed the way that I saw myself because I couldn't run like other kids. I was embarrassed. I didn't want to be out in public wearing shorts because I didn't like being different. And my mother bought a piano. She thought, well, you can't run. You should sit down and learn to play something that it doesn't really matter how your leg feels. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be a piano player. I definitely didn't want to practice, but my mother insisted that I do that. She made me do that, if you will. And it didn't change my life overnight. It didn't change my life in a week or two, a month or two, even a year or two. Um, but I graduated high school with a scholarship to college playing classical piano. And then from there, um, I made my way to Branson, Missouri, which is a big entertainment town. It's a lot like Dollywood, that area. And I got a job in the music shows, and suddenly nobody really cared that I had an artificial leg. You know, I had spent most of my life from age 6 through age 18, all those school years, feeling sorry for myself and feeling like I didn't fit in and embarrassed of who I was. And it really wasn't until I got into, out of college and into working in a job where it didn't really matter at all what my physical condition was. And so now here I was in Branson, and lights are shining bright above my head, and there are lots of people in the crowd, and they're screaming, and it's fun. It's like, oh wow, Mom, thanks for these piano lessons because this is really paying off. I'm getting to play piano for lots of people, and then January 16th, 1994 comes along, and I get into an accident. I'm driving my pickup truck down the interstate, and I hit black ice, started spinning out of control, and the next thing you know, my pickup is in the other lane of the interstate in front of a semi truck. The semi was loaded with steel beams. He flipped over as he knocked the bed of my pickup truck off. Door came open to my truck, and I went flying out the door, but the seatbelt caught me right around the neck. The lap belt came up under my arm, and next thing you know, I'm hanging out the door with my left arm unable to move. My artificial leg fell off into the highway. They had to cut me out of the seat belt. They laid me face down alongside the road, and I'm waiting on an ambulance to arrive. And an ice storm decides to start at the same time. And the whole time I'm lying there, and I'm thinking, I can get to the hospital because I'm a piano player. That's my whole identity now. So by the time they get me to the hospital, they really don't expect me to live. I had broken my neck at C2 and 3. I had suffered a partial stroke, had internal injuries they were afraid I was going to die from. Eventually, I had neck fusion surgery done, was put into a halo brace. That's what these little things here are for. The scars of this brace that they screw into your skull, 4 different places. And that, is to keep your head from moving. I tell people it makes you look as bad on the outside as you feel on the inside. And I can tell you, when the doctors came in and told me that I'd had permanent damage to the brachial plexus, that's the nerves that moves your hand and your arm, that it was never going to work. Again, I felt really bad. I felt like that 6-year-old. I went back to, all of those memories and feeling of inadequacy. And I've had to learn some really valuable lessons in life. And I guess what I want to share with you today is that it would be very easy to give up. And it would be very easy to feel sorry for myself, to feel like I have no purpose in life. But I have learned that we all have purpose in life. And I want to share that with you. You have purpose. Your life has meaning. Not everything in life is going to always be good. There's going to be a lot of things that happen in life that are unfair. I'm one of the few people that can honestly say it cost me an arm and a leg to do what I do. I I went on to become a one-handed piano player, and went on with my career in Branson as a musician. Eventually had a recording contract with a group out of Nashville, Tennessee. We traveled. We were on television. Um, I've written a book. I travel around and I speak. Um, Purpose is something that we all have. It may take you a while to figure out what that is. But I just want to encourage you, don't let the things that happen to you in life be something that keeps you from being all that you were created to be. And we need to learn to be kind to one another and not be so concerned about what others think. But at the same time, we need to be the kind of people that when we see others that are hurting or that may look different than we look, to reach out to them. I know, like I told you, a lot of my early teenage years were spent in isolation and feeling sorry for myself, and it took me a lot of years to learn that I didn't have to live that way. And maybe you can make a difference in somebody's life right now by just reaching out to them and letting them know that they're important, and that you care about them, because we need to care about one another. That's how we get through life. Take it from somebody who's 53 years old. Um, we need to be kind to one another. We need to care about one another. So I hope that no matter what you may be feeling, what you may be going through, that you'll listen to this 53-year-old guy who's been ran over by a lawnmower and a semi truck. Um, that life has lots of ups and lots of downs. But if you put one foot in front of the other and keep on climbing the mountains in front of you, eventually you get to the top, and it's a wonderful view. There's some wonderful things ahead in your life, and I hope that you will uh, be all that you were created to be. Thanks for letting me talk to you. Bye bye.